Welcome to Wrestling Sphere, your go-to channel for uncovering every secret and story behind the spotlight of professional wrestling. Today we're diving into the lives of once famous wrestlers who were adored by millions around the world, but whose paths took a dark and tragic turn. They not only lost their careers but also faced harsh prison sentences, forced to endure days filled with regret and destruction. If you enjoy raw, emotional stories from the wrestling world, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the exciting videos coming up on Wrestling Sphere. Number 1. Tammy Sitch, From Spotlight to Shadows. Once WWE's first iconic sex symbol known as Sunny, Tammy Sitch was an indispensable face during the golden era of the Attitude Era. In 2011, she was honored with induction into the WWE Hall of Fame, marking the glorious journey of a wrestling queen. But that bright spotlight quickly faded, overshadowed by a series of serious mistakes that darkened the name Sunny. Starting in 2012, Tammy began to spiral deeper into legal troubles. Within just 4 weeks, she was arrested 5 times for violating a restraining order against her ex-boyfriend, Damian Darling. Once a strong symbol, she lost control of her emotions, turning the jail cell into a grimly familiar place. The worst turning point came in March 2022. Tammy, intoxicated, crashed into the rear of an elderly man's vehicle stopped at a red light. The victim died instantly at the scene. Blood tests revealed her blood alcohol level was 3.5 times above the legal limit. From an admired Hall of Famer, Tammy became a convicted criminal, sentenced to 17 years in prison for vehicular manslaughter while driving under the influence. She is currently serving her sentence and will remain behind bars until at least December 2039. The glory she once had is now nothing but ashes within the cold gray walls of her prison cell. Her courtroom words, "I am deeply sorry," now echo as a late, painful confession. Number 2. Brian Michael McGee, the killer with a dream shattered in the ring. Brian Michael McGee was a somewhat familiar name in the independent wrestling scene, known by various ring names like Donovan Ruddock, DT Porter, and The Future. Although he never made it to major stages like WWE, he carried a burning dream of becoming a star, a dream now forever buried behind bars. In July 2013, McGee shocked the community in Tampa, Florida, when he was charged with first-degree murder. The victim was Bianca McGee, his 25-year-old ex-girlfriend. According to police reports, McGee was waiting at the apartment complex where Bianca lived, attacking her brutally while she was walking her dog and talking on the phone, ironically with McGee's legal wife on the other line. The details of the case are chilling. Not only did McGee stab the victim repeatedly, but after the first knife broke, he returned to his car to grab another blade. Following the attack, he fled, was aggressively pursued by police, and eventually crashed his car into a barricade during the chase. The situation worsened when McGee refused to surrender, forcing law enforcement to deploy police dogs to subdue him. The horror didn't end there. McGee shocked social media by posting his confession and photos of the victim on Facebook shortly after the murder. In July 2016, he was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Once a man who dreamed of rising in the wrestling world, McGee now exists only as a shadow, decaying in the eternal darkness of prison. Number 3. HardBody Harrison, From Wrestling Jobber to Human Trafficking Kingpin. HardBody Harrison, whose real name is Harrison Norris Jr., appeared in numerous matches for WCW in the late 1990s, mostly serving as a jobber for bigger stars. While he never reached a prominent status, he left a mark with his muscular physique and wild personality. After WWE acquired WCW in 2001, Norris's contract was not renewed. It seemed like the end of his career, but he resurfaced on the FX show Tough Man, where he won the heavyweight championship in 2000. However, the spotlight was just the beginning of a far darker and terrifying story. In August 2005, HardBody Norris's life took a sinister turn when the FBI raided his home in Georgia. What they uncovered shocked the public. Norris was charged with 9 serious offenses including unlawful imprisonment and sex trafficking. According to the indictment, Norris deceived numerous women, mostly homeless, addicted, or impoverished, by promising to start a women's wrestling company. But beneath this glamorous facade lay an exploitative network. He forced the victims into prostitution, grueling labor, and harsh living conditions. Worse, he fabricated fake debts to trap them under his control. In April 2008, Norris was sentenced to life imprisonment, a heavy price for the cruelty he inflicted. Once a man who stood in the ring shouting for glory, he is now a cursed name, forever decaying in the shadows of prison walls. Number 4. Wana Barza, the silent lady in Mexico's shocking murder spree. In the heart of Mexico's lucha libre scene, where colorful masks and dramatic wrestling moves captivate passionate crowds, Wana Barza was known as La Dama del Silencio, the silent lady. But this silence was more than just a wrestling persona. It was a dark veil hiding one of the most horrific crime sprees in the country's recent history. Though she stepped into the ring as a luchadora, many believed Barza was more of an enthusiastic fan than a professional wrestler. She was a familiar face at lucha libre community parties, friendly, talkative, and showing no obvious signs of trouble. Yet behind her smile and mask was a completely different identity, cold, ruthless, and haunted by a shadowy past. In the early 1990s, a series of brutal murders targeted elderly women. The victims shared common traits. They lived alone, were older, and were strangled, often with electrical cords, scarves, or even by the killer's bare hands. After years of investigation, Mexican authorities arrested Barza in 2006 as she was fleeing a crime scene, still holding a doctor's stethoscope. At her 2008 trial, Barza confessed to killing 16 people and was sentenced to 759 years in prison. However, officials suspect she may have been responsible for 42 to 48 murders. Once a masked fighter in the ring, she is now condemned to a living hell behind bars, where the spotlight has vanished, replaced only by the cold echoes of her terrifying crimes. Number 5. Buck Hoff, the rock and roll icon of the ring in a downward spiral with no escape. Once hailed as the king of rock and roll in the wrestling world, Buck Hoff was a familiar figure in promotions like AWA and WCCW, where he held the World Lightweight Championship. With his handheld radio and swaggering steps to classic rock tunes, Hoff captivated audiences with his lively, entertaining persona. Even in WWF, where he mostly played a supporting role, he left his mark as the first wrestler The Undertaker stuffed into a body bag on live TV, and as the first to lose to Hunter Hearst Helmsley, who would later become the legendary Triple H. But the spotlight couldn't mask the growing darkness in his life. In 1986, Hoff was first convicted of sexually abusing a minor. Then, in 1989, he served 3 years in prison for a similar offense. Many hoped that after serving time he might turn his life around. Sadly, that was just the beginning of a tragic downfall. In 2013 he was arrested again, this time facing 12 serious charges related to sexual abuse of family members spanning over a decade. The victim, after undergoing therapy, courageously came forward to testify in court. In an unbelievable turn of events, right after the trial, Hoff tried to flee the courthouse but was subdued within minutes amid the chaos. In May 2014 he was sentenced to over 25 years behind bars. Once a man who brought energy and joy to the ring, Buck Hoff now rots away behind prison walls for unforgivable actions. A bitter end for an icon who lost himself completely. Number 6. Jimmy Uso, WWE's shining star and the nameless shadow behind the wheel. In the WWE universe, Jimmy Uso, born Jonathan Fatu, is one half of the legendary tag team the Usos, masters of combining raw power, lightning speed, and traditional Samoan spirit in perfect harmony. With his fierce wrestling style and flawless teamwork alongside his twin brother Jey Uso, Jimmy quickly carved a special place in fans' hearts, especially as a key member of the Bloodline, a dominant force that ruled WWE for years. But behind the bright spotlight, Jimmy's life has repeatedly skid off course due to one recurring mistake: drunk driving. His first arrest came in 2011 for DUI. Many brushed it off as youthful error, something that would be a one-time slip and soon forgotten. Yet, by 2019, Jimmy found himself in trouble for the same offense again, raising concerns about his personal control and decision-making. Despite this, WWE kept him on the roster and he continued to perform. Then, in July 2021, he was arrested yet another time with a blood alcohol level twice the legal limit. Though he was only briefly detained and posted bail, the incident seriously damaged his public image once more. What leaves people wondering is this: how could someone with everything, fame, talent, and opportunity, keep driving himself repeatedly into such dangerous darkness? Still, Jimmy Uso remains a core player in WWE. He appears regularly, competes at a high intensity, and continues to be an essential piece in the ongoing saga of the Bloodline. Yet, the past stumbles linger like scars that never fully heal, quietly shadowing every step he takes inside the squared circle. Number 7. Jeff Hardy, the broken angel under the spotlight. If there's ever been an icon who could make WWE fans leap out of their seats in excitement, it's definitely Jeff Hardy. Known for flying off ladders, crashing through tables from insane heights, and exploding like fireworks in every match, Jeff isn't just a wrestler, he's an artist. With his multicolored hair and eccentric style, he stood out as a true original. Yet behind the creative exterior and legendary swanton bombs lies a life that has repeatedly slipped off course. Since the early 2000s, Jeff Hardy's struggles with substance abuse have caused deep concern among fans. He was arrested for drug possession more than once, with accusations recurring over the years. Each time he fell, Jeff tried to pick himself back up, fighting to keep moving forward on a path full of traps and pitfalls. As time passed, his troubles extended to DUI arrests in various states, casting a dark shadow over what seemed like an unbreakable career. WWE, the company that once elevated him to superstardom, eventually parted ways with him after a series of incidents in 2021. But true to his relentless fighting spirit inside the ring, Jeff refused to give up. He joined AEW, reuniting with his brother Matt Hardy. Still, the road has never been easy. Despite multiple stints in rehab and public promises to change, the scars from his past continue to haunt him. Today, Jeff Hardy is like a flame, sometimes blazing bright, other times flickering weakly. Fans love him yet can't help but worry. Because for Jeff, the line between light and darkness, between superstar and abyss, is as fragile as one of those wild leaps from the very top of a towering ladder. Number 8. Lex Luger, from the total package to life's dark shadows. There was a time when Lex Luger was the very image of perfection in the wrestling ring, a chiseled physique resembling a Greek god, earning him the nickname the Total Package. He stood alongside legends like Sting, Ric Flair, and Hulk Hogan, representing a generation of wrestlers shining bright in both WCW and WWF. But behind those gleaming muscles lay a soul increasingly drawn into darkness. By the late 90s and early 2000s, Luger's life began to fracture. Miss Elizabeth, famously known as Randy Savage's longtime partner and also close to Luger in real life, was found dead in his home in 2003. Though Luger was never charged with murder, the tragedy exposed dark truths. Elizabeth had drugs in her system, and Luger was arrested for possession of illegal substances, along with allegations of abuse during their time together. Once a heroic figure, Luger spiraled into legal battles and addiction. He served a brief prison sentence and spent years under probation. But the harshest blow was yet to come. In 2007, a stroke left him paralyzed from the neck down, the proud body that had inspired a generation reduced to a mere shadow. Today, Lex Luger lives quietly away from the spotlight, no longer appearing on television or in the ring. He leads a simple life, rarely engaging with the public, and is known to have turned to religion as a path toward redemption. Those who once admired him likely still mourn the loss. A flawless physique, a peak career, all crushed by personal mistakes in the heavy sigh of fate. Number 9. Rob Van Dam, the fall of the flying cushion. At the peak of his career, Rob Van Dam was an irreplaceable name in the hearts of wrestling fans. With a unique style blending martial arts, acrobatics, and high-risk moves, RVD brought a fresh, electrifying energy to ECW. When he transitioned to WWE, that passion didn't fade. In 2006, Van Dam reached the pinnacle of his career by becoming the champion of both WWE and ECW, a feat never achieved before. But glory can be a double-edged sword, and RVD felt it in the harshest way. Just weeks after his historic win, Ohio State Police pulled him over for speeding. Inside the car they found marijuana and ecstasy, and he wasn't alone. Sabu, his longtime friend and teammate, was with him. Both were immediately arrested on the spot. Though RVD faced only a fine afterward, the cost in the wrestling world was much steeper. WWE quickly stripped him of both major titles. From being the king without a crown of two brands, RVD plunged to the bottom overnight. However, unlike many stars who fell into darkness, RVD chose to confront his struggles head-on. He stepped away from the spotlight to rebuild his reputation. Years later, WWE still recognizes him as a true legend, honoring him with induction into the Hall of Fame, a formal act of forgiveness. Today, Rob Van Dam occasionally appears at special events. While the shadows of the past can't be erased, he remains remembered as the Flying Cushion, the artist behind the iconic 5-star frog splash and a symbol that a comeback after a fall is never too late. Number 10. Jake, the Snake, Roberts, from addiction's darkness to the light of redemption. With his chilling, whispered voice and predator-like gaze, Jake, the Snake, Roberts was a nightmare on WWE's ring in the 1980s. Without shouting or showboating, Jake spread fear through deadly silence and the massive snake always slithering near his shoulder. But off the ring, his real life was even darker than what fans ever saw on TV. Jake was once an icon of WWE's golden era but also a harsh example of the industry's brutal side. The loss of his mother, childhood abuse, and a deeply troubled youth plunged him into a vicious cycle of addiction. Drugs, alcohol, and domestic violence. He was entangled in nearly every kind of personal torment. There were times he wandered homeless, mumbling drunk, living like a mere shadow of himself. He entered rehab countless times and gave up more than once. But in 2012, a glimmer of hope appeared when old friend Diamond Dallas Page stepped in to rescue him. Jake moved in with DDP and began a journey of healing, both physical and mental, captured in a documentary that deeply moved fans worldwide. Today, Jake is no longer this scary stranger of his past. He appears in AEW as a manager and a source of inspiration for many young wrestlers. Though the scars remain, Jake the Snake Roberts survived, rose again, and shared his story, a powerful proof that a dark past doesn't have to be the end. These stories serve as a painful warning about the dark paths many famous wrestlers have taken. Glory is fleeting if you can't protect yourself from the temptations and challenges outside the ring. Behind those legendary names lie tragedies, irreversible mistakes, and lifelong sentences. They once captivated fans, but now many have become forgotten by society, confined to cold prison cells. If you found this video meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more honest and deep stories from the wrestling world that few know about. Thank you for joining us today at Wrestling Sphere, where we share untold stories about WWE stars and the world of professional wrestling.